Teenage jive, walking wreck, wild in the streets, running, running, wild in the streets, running, running, wild in the streets, running, running, wild in the streets, they're running wild in the streets.
Welcome to Trick Tips Volume 3, Secrets of Skate. In the previous two videos, we covered the basics of skateboarding in the first one, and the second one we covered a little more technical street skating, kick flips, 180s, you know, just more new school stuff, and also some mini ramp stuff. But now, we're kind of gonna take you back. We're gonna teach you some of the old school stuff, some of the foundation of skating, probably before you even realize it. You know, stuff that maybe isn't considered cool these days, but is still hard to learn and is valid, you know, and you could surprise some people by doing some of it. We want you to, you know, we just want you to be more well-rounded. We want you to have more variety in your skating and be diverse, and also have a knowledge of skating beyond 1990s. We've also managed to convince a couple of our friends to help us. One is Mike Vallely, who is a legend of street skating. He was pro in the 1980s, and now he's still going strong, so he's familiar with all this stuff. He probably invented a lot of it. And also world champion vert skater Barty Lasek, because he's going to teach us some vert skills. And so we're going to go into some basics of vert, you know, so you can take some of those mini ramp skills and get up into the bigger ramps. So we're gonna get started. You know, this is gonna be a little more lighthearted because this stuff is just kind of fun tricks to learn. You know, this stuff is like the kind of thing that, this is the kind of stuff that you maybe weren't really focused on learning when you started skating, but now you realize that, hey, it's something else, it's something fun. So we get started and hope you enjoy. All right, Mike V promised that he'd do the video if we had a quick Bertelsmann jam session, and what you just saw us doing was the Bertelsmann, and that's sort of a power slide layback. You put your front hand down, do it on wedge banks. I wouldn't really recommend doing it too much at the skate park because you might get hit because people like to jump over the banks. Oh, look, it's Mike V.
Hey,
legendary pro street skater.
Wow, thanks. That's very nice of you. It's an honor to be here, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. We actually used to ride for the same team, Pal Peralta, in the 80s, Bones Brigade. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Getting a little too nostalgic.
That could happen today.
That's true, huh? So what do you think we should start with? I mean, besides our Bertelsmann session.
Well, the Bertelsmann's was a good place to start. I like that trick, but I say we step it up, mid-80s, ollie grabs.
Oh yeah, ollie grabs. Ollie grabs, basically ollieing up and grabbing your board. You can do it a number of ways, and it's usually easier to learn off of launch ramps, you think? Launch ramps, wedge ramps, like, so you get a little more airtime?
Today you'll see most people doing it off of ramps, but I learned them on the flat ground. I think we should start on the flat ground and then take it to ramps.
Yeah, if you can do them on the flat ground, then you got on ramps no problem because you get more lift off the ramp. So we'll get started and show you some.
Do it.
Ollie grabs, just like it sounds. You ollie and you grab your board, but the trick is to really lift the board up to your hand, you know?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be reaching down because that makes you go lower, and also it may be hard to get. You want to bring your legs up and then it just comes up there. You reach, you know what I mean? Like, you can reach a little bit. Kind of turn it to whatever grab you're gonna do, you know? If you say if you're gonna go mute, then you might want to sort of position your body so that it's facing your hand, you come down, or if you're going melon, then you want to sort of bring it around. But for the most part, you just suck it up and your upper body does the work. We'll show you some variations and we'll get back to it. As you ollie, have your hand positioned where you plan to grab the board. For a mute grab, hang your front arm around your front knee and between your toes. For a melon, reach behind your front leg and between your heels. And for an indie, reach around your back leg with your back hand and grab between your toes. Catch your board just before the peak of your ollie and hold it until you are descending. Release the board just before landing and stand up. Make sure your feet are placed properly on the board before setting it down, or face the consequences. As you gain more confidence with your grabs, try them on or over different obstacles, increasing your height and tweak.
All right, so those were ollie grabs. Those flat ground ones were a little harder than I remember them being, but I guess if you can get the basics down on the flat ground, then it'd be a good idea to start taking them to jump ramps, hips, transitions, even down things. You know, like down some steps or off a curb. Give you a little more air time, get your grab in there.
Yeah, I find you get the most sort of time to learn it if you go sort of a launch ramp, maybe to a deck. Yeah, if you got them on flat, you can do them pretty much anywhere because that's the least amount of time you're gonna get. Main things that can go wrong is not grabbing your board, and that's either caused by not lifting your legs enough up to it, or not lifting your board with your legs, or just reaching down too far and it just doesn't give you any air time. If you're really bending down to try to get your board, you're just not gonna get in the air, and you're probably gonna not have the time to grab it. So just make sure to suck up your legs and just bring it to your hand. Just deliver it. Deliver the board to your hand.
Yes.
Okay, half cabs. Half cab is basically a fakie to 180 ollie. You start off going backwards, do a little ollie, turn, and you end up riding forwards. And it's derived from a full cab, which is a 360 ollie, fakie to 360 ollie. 3 components. First one is your foot placement. Want to make sure your feet are set up basically like an ollie, kind of hovering over your tail as you start.
Next is your shoulder rotation. When you pop for the ollie, you have to make sure that the timing is proper so that you're rotating just as you pop. And as you rotate, it's important to remember that your leading arm will kind of guide you around for the half cab.
So once you pop, and if you've got the timing right, you're leaning, the 180 just happens on its own. I mean, the landing, it's all just sort of, it's all set up before you even do the trick, honestly. So that's about it, you know, and just we'll show you some common mistakes. As you begin, rotate your upper body by turning your shoulders in the direction you want to spin. Ollie while making sure that your front foot slides straight towards the nose and not off to the side. Shift your weight forward as you land, leaning towards your front foot to avoid shooting out.
Action, Mikey, feel it. Feel power. All right, so those were half cabs. We had some good ones and some bad ones. I think you had some more bad ones than good ones.
Oh, I see. Right. Actually, you're right. Yeah, my problem was foot placement in terms of landing, and that's just a function of how you take off. You know, like if you snap it and you don't really get a good snap, your feet are going to go all over the place, and you just got to make sure that once you take off, it's really good pop. You know, it's all about that pop, and you got to adjust for it if you don't get it right.
Yeah. When I first started learning this trick, I had a problem with under rotating, so I would come up a little short. But actually, that's how I ended up learning how to do the trick. Is I would kind of just half cab and pivot. I wouldn't make a full rotation. I'd make a half rotation and then turn it the rest of the way. And that's a good way to learn the trick. But eventually, you want to get to popping it and getting a full turn.
Yeah, you can get away with that. If you do over rotation, whereas you're almost going into a full caballero, you can't really get out of that. So you just want to make sure that when you wind up, you don't wind up too far, you know, and when you pop, it's a really good one. And sometimes if you don't hit your tail, that'll send you over rotating by accident. So just make sure you get a good pop, don't rotate too far, and keep your feet solid. And you got it, half cabs. Yeah, we're gonna do full cabs, but Mike and I are a little rusty. Okay.
All right, this next trick is another old one. It's called the ollie north. It's an ollie, ollie 1 foot. You ollie, front foot kicks out, sort of like a judo kick.
Yeah.
It's a good trick. I like it. Why'd you put it in the video?
Well, a lot of kids want to know about it because they played in video games, and I think they like the name. And the name is actually derived from Oliver North from Ronald Reagan presidential days, Iran-Contra scandal. If you want to go check your history book, whatever. But we just like the name. So basically, you just ollie. And you can either do it in one motion where you slide your foot forward and actually over the nose and just kick it out, or you can do an ollie and then once it's leveled out, just sort of give it a little flick out, you know, judo style. And make sure you're leaning totally over your board because this one can end up in a wheelie really easily. And that's about it. We'll show you some. And
let's
then,
go do these.
You know, yeah, I can do ollie north. As your front foot slides forward and your board levels out, continue sliding it over the nose and kick your legs straight out and up, karate style. Make sure to replace your foot and lean forward before landing. Okay, ollie north, Mike can blast him. He kicks his foot way out there. I like that. I'd like to do it like that, actually. How do you do him so high?
That's all pop. Just got to concentrate on the pop. I think it's similar to the pop, the late shove it, in that it's kind of a two-part trick in itself, because you kind of ollie and then you kick your foot out.
Kick your foot off, yeah.
You know, as far as some of the problems that you can encounter on this trick, you got to watch out for your board flipping. That'll happen because your body's not positioned right. I think it's important to remember on this trick and just about any trick, really. It's really about body positioning and feet positioning and keeping your weight centered over your board. Because if you don't have your weight centered properly, your board might flip or you might fall backwards or go too far forward. So I think it's the same thing. It's just looking out for making sure your body's in the right place.
Yeah, especially when you kick your foot off, though, you want to make sure that your foot is flat on the board. If it's at all on your toe, your heel, the board's just going to flop from underneath you.
Yeah, and if you don't get that foot back fast enough, then you're gonna get more of a loop out kind of thing.
Into a wheelie. Ollie north, wheelie. No one does them too much anymore, but hey, go out there and you know, rejuvenate it. Get it back. Bring it back. Late shove-its. A late shove-it is an ollie and then a shove it on the way down from the ollie. And there was a trick that was big in the early 90s. And people kind of stopped doing them because now the big deal is to catch your trick. So you shove it and then you catch it up there. And this is actually done after you reach your height, your apex, and then you do it on the way down. And usually it's done front side.
Yeah, that's what makes it interesting, is because it's really a two-part trick. When you do this trick, you ollie, and as you level out of your ollie, that's when the trick actually happens. That's when you shove the board. So you ollie, reach your peak, and then it's a shove it, and then you land. So it's a two-part trick.
What you want to do is when you're at the top of your ollie, you got to be really level. You got to be over your board. Like everything's got to be right for the shove it to work properly. And the shove it is like a scissor kick with your legs. You know, one leg goes one way and the other leg goes the other, and it's really tricky. But you got to keep your board flat, because otherwise you're going to land on a board that's upside down or just not there at all. But we'll talk about mistakes later. So let's try some late shoves and you know, old school. As you level out your ollie, kick your back foot towards your toes to start the board spinning. Simultaneously, kick your front foot towards your heel and downward. Stay above your board as it spins and make sure it is not flipping. Set your feet on the board before it spins too far and lean forward as you land. A lot of problems can happen with late shove-its. One of the biggest problems is leaning back as you're about to land, and you end up either with your back foot off, or you just end up in a wheelie, or you just end up shooting out and landing on your back. The way to overcome that is to just make sure you're really hovered over your front foot as you're coming down. What else?
Yeah, you gotta stay centered over your board. If you're not centered over your board, you're gonna loop out, or you can fall forward. Either way, I think it's just really important with this trick to really try and land, you know, with your shoulder square and you're centered. Yeah, you're leaning forward.
Another problem is that the board will flip once you throw it into a shove-it. That is caused by your feet not being flat as you go to the shove-it. So maybe your ollie's off a little bit, maybe you're more on your toes or on your heel, but it's real easy. It just happens like that. You go to shove it and the thing just flops over and you end up landing primo sometimes, which I had a good example of.
Yeah, again, I think this is a trick that because it's a two-part trick and because the main part of the trick happens after the fact, it's really it's something to add to your repertoire of tricks, and it makes you a more versatile skater. It gives you more options when you're skating at the skate park, or you know, skating in a contest. You have more options there. All right, Tony's taking a break right now, so I'm thinking of trying something a little bit different. I'm thinking of going with a ollie finger flip. I don't know if Tony can do it, even though I do believe he pioneered that move on vert before I had even ever stepped on a skateboard. But on the flat ground, it's different terrain. I don't know if Tony can hang with me. So this is an ollie finger flip. And basically, ollie, board goes into your hand. I grab it like this. So my thumb's underneath, my fingers are on top. And grab it, and I flip it. So it's ollie up, grab it, flip it, onto your feet, roll away. It's a good trick. I'm gonna stick it to Tony on this one.
Ollie a board into your hand and flip it in the heel flip direction as soon as you get a good hold of it. Grabbing with your thumb on the bottom makes it easier to hold longer through the flip. Grabbing with your thumb on the grip tape, like me, forces you to release it early and makes the flip less consistent. Okay, you got me on finger flips. I can't ollie into them. Think about it.
Sorry.
Well, what you got on Impossibles?
Ooh, you'd think that I could do an ollie impossible after all those years of skating with Templeton, but no, I got my own variation.
Okay, let's see. Ollie Impossible, well, it's one of those tricks that I think people like the name a lot, and so they are curious about what it really is. And probably when it was invented, people thought, hey, that looks impossible, because during an impossible, the board wraps around your back foot. So you do an ollie, and it actually goes all the way over and comes back to where it was. Well, I start to do them. You want to get in sort of an ollie position, but I usually have my heel hanging off the board because I got these size 13 boats, and I got to keep my feet out of the way when the thing actually comes around. And I keep my front foot kind of in ollie position, but also off to the side just to get it out of the way. And there's a lot of scooping to it, so it's not really like an ollie. It's sort of like it's a start of an ollie, and you push your front foot forward, and that gets the board to roll around. So it's like there's this sort of sweeping motion your foot does, and you're sort of pushing it ahead of yourself. It's hard to learn. Sometimes it'll come into a 360 shove it, you know, and it won't really roll, but at least you get the feel of it. So just work on that motion. You can actually try to work on it and take your foot off, step off it if you have to. But you know, just keep at it, and I'll show you some, and we'll talk about the mistakes. Kick down and forward with your back foot in a scooping motion while kicking your front foot back and out of the way. Continue pushing your back foot as the board rolls over it, and prepare to replace your front foot. Set your front foot down as the board comes around and lean forward. Readjust your back foot if it ends up near the middle of your board, which is a perfectly acceptable landing of the impossible.
Marker.
Well, we both have our own issues with these tricks, and so we kind of create our own style, right? Finger flips. I decide that the ollie's not really necessary, although it's not as exciting. You can get it done, and that's pretty, you know. And then Mike's got the impossible step off, no comply thing. Off. But you know, that's skating. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do it and you're having fun. We don't care. Mike, what are the common mistakes with the ollie finger flip? Because I didn't even get to it.
Well, I think you gotta. Well, first of all, you gotta really, because the nature of the trick, because it's a grabbing trick and you're flipping it with your hand. You know, learning the flip in itself is kind of tricky. But once you get that down, you can kind of underflip, and you can land. It's easy to land primo like that, or you can be leaning too far back when you flip the board and loop out. Just gotta watch out for that.
I wouldn't know. Let's see, impossibles. There's a whole plethora of problems with that trick. One is the board flipping as it comes around, and that's just a function of the way it rolls over your foot. If your foot's not flat, if you're not keeping it level, or if it happens to roll over your ankle as opposed to just over the flat part of your foot, that'll just send it flipping, and you land upside down. And you actually land upside down on top of your foot, so it feels really bad when you do that. Other than that, the board, you know, instead of actually doing instead of going over your foot, it goes off to the side and it does like a 360 shove it. And if you make it, then you can work your way up to actually doing the impossible flop over, but it's fine either way, you know. It's just sometimes people might call it a 360 shove it, so.
Well, I think what was cool about this was we're kind of swapping tricks, and it shows that, you know, different people have different variations of the same kind of maneuvers. And you know, you might ollie impossible, I might step off, I might ollie airwalk, you might early grab airwalk. but that's okay. It's okay.
Bonus one is basically it's taking the foot off and planting it on the ground and jumping into the air. And people used to do them on the street before people knew how to ollie, and that was their way to get over things. That was their way to get into the air, was to actually jump into the air by placing one foot on the ground. And this would be most classified as old school, if anything. And I'm not sure what the history is or why it's called the boneless one. But you can do it pretty much anywhere, right?
Oh, I think it's called a boneless one because one of your actual bones, one of your limbs, leaves the board and is planted on the ground. Perhaps. All right. But for me, this is one of the first tricks I ever learned. So I remember doing it on the flat ground first, then doing it on banks, in ditches. I even started doing it on ramps. And because it's one of the first tricks I learned, it's a trick that still means a lot to me, a trick I still do to this day. It's a great trick.
So we're gonna do some for you, and you can choose whether you think it's worthy of your abilities.
Oh, it is.
It is, but
It definitely is.
reach down and grab your board in the same fashion as an indie air. Set your front foot on the ground and jump upward. Keep your back foot planted on the board while sailing through the air and getting your front foot back on. There are many variations possible with this trick, including off of ramps, 180, switch, finger flip, and what the... Oh, bonus ones? Well, when bonus ones go bad, not a lot happens. Usually, if you try to ollie your board into your hand, that doesn't work. You know, you gotta revert. You gotta like go back and learn how we started, which is actually reaching down and grabbing your board and lifting it up. I mean, it's a little effort involved. You know,
Just when you think you bend it enough, you haven't. You have to bend just a little further over. You have to actually grab your board and pick it up, which kind of goes against the grain of everything you've ever learned about skateboarding. But that's kind of where we came from. That's the skating we grew up with.
yeah,
And,
so learn your roots.
yeah, but if two old guys like us can bend over and grab our boards, so can you. It just takes a little practice.
What else could go wrong? Other things is if you go up and you go for the jump and you decide you don't want to put it back on your feet, then you keep hopping and you're just like, you know, traveling, and you gotta just take that one step and go, because otherwise you're not gonna get that high and it's gonna look like you're doing this goofy boneless dance. Other than that, just make sure you turn your board, if you happen to tweak it out, just make sure you turn it all the way back, otherwise your foot's not gonna get on properly, you know, and you know, practice them, and you can one day do bonus ones like the Gons, the famous Gons, like this, sticking his tail all the way out.
Or you can do it Jersey style.
Or Jersey style. Jersey style. Ooh. Go to it.
All right, this is another old trick. It's called the no comply. And this one's interesting because it's sort of a mix between an ollie and a boneless, where you're actually taking a foot off and planting it, but you're popping it with your back foot, sort of like an ollie. But the only difference is you don't actually catch it. Well, you do kind of catch it with your front foot, but you level it out with your leg. So it's kind of a mix of old and new. Even though it's an old trick itself, it kind of has some staying power because it's just kind of different and interesting and versatile.
It does look pretty cool too, especially if you can get it to pop over things. Most of the trick is in the back foot. You know, you step your front foot off, and then it's like you've got to do the ollie and the leveling out all with your back foot. And if you hit a curve, sometimes that'll help you to jump up a little bit higher. But as Mike demonstrates, you can pretty much just do it off your leg and create an ollie out of it. And it's a fun trick. It is a little hard to learn though. You take it for granted if you can do it, but just keep practicing, and we'll show you our techniques. And
Yeah,
show you
well,
what can go
what's
wrong.
cool about it too, like the ollie, there's a lot of variations, so let's go jam a few of these out.
15-minute no comply jam.
Let's do this. Where are we going? Right at the camera?
Place your front foot on the ground to the side of your board while doing a subtle ollie. Push your back foot forward, guiding your board as you jump with your front foot. Level out your board with your back leg if necessary, and place your front foot back on the board, leaning forward and riding away clean.
All right, so there you had it, some no comply variations. If you watch the footage closely, you'll see that Tony's 360 flip no comply, he was actually on the telephone when he did it. Pretty cool.
I had to get distracted to actually make it because it was taking too long. Anyway, there's a lot of variations. You know, once you take your foot off, you can just kick the board around however you want. 360s, 180s, shifty. And the main thing you want to remember is that when you kick it, you really want to keep your foot pushing it through, because if you just kick it, and the most common mistake is just kicking it out, you know, and the board just gets away from you, and you really got to keep it under your foot, and it's sort of a combination of of a pop and a push. What else?
Can't get your front foot back on.
Yeah, not getting your front foot back on. Or if you go to hop and you just kind of, you don't commit to it and you just sort of skip it, you're not gonna get any height that way. And so you just gotta work on really watching the board and jumping over it. It's a little bit scary to commit at first, but do it a couple times, do it low, you get it.
Yeah, it's all feel. You just gotta work on it and feel it. Eventually, with enough practice, you know, all the elements will come together, and you'll be able to nail it.
You could be a no comply master and win your own 15-minute jam. Okay, pressure flips. Pressure flips kind of older trick. It's like, what?
Dude, seriously, pressure flips?
Yeah, what? It's old school. We're doing old school stuff, right?
Yeah, but pressure flips?
Yeah, it's like a flip trick.
No, dude.
No.
You're on your own on this one. I have nothing to do with it.
Okay, fine. I might catch some heat, but I'm keeping the dream alive, you know? Because it's almost extinct and people have forgotten about the pressure flip, and I'm here to bring it back. So pressure flip is basically, it's a kick flip using only your back foot, and you actually just put pressure on the tail at certain points to make it flip certain ways, and I really only do it one way, and mine's kind of like a kickflip varial. But I don't know, people just kind of forgot about it in the early 90s. A lot of people were doing it then, and that was kind of this movement, and then they just forgot about it. I think because you don't ollie into it, so it's not considered cool, but I don't care. I'm not here to win any popularity contests. So basically, for a varial pressure flip, you put all your pressure on your toe and the sort of inside of your tail, and that starts it flipping, and it kind of does like almost like a frontside shove it flip, where it's a varial flip, but if you don't kick it just right, it just kind of ends up doing a shove it. And so you got to really put the pressure on your toes to make it to sort of scoop it. It's sort of like a pushing, scooping action instead of an ollie. And I'll do some, and maybe that'll explain it better. All right, but don't forget about him. Mike V, whatever. Start with your back foot closer to the back truck than on a regular ollie. Push down on your toes and scoop forward, sending the board into an inward heel flip rotation. Keep your front foot out of the way until you see the board come around and the grip tape welcomes you back on. Avoid landing with your rear foot too far back, which is a surefire way to snap your tail. Okay, common problems with pressure flips. Well, the biggest problem is not applying enough pressure. And if you push it out and it just ends up flopping upside down, that means that you're not putting enough pressure on your toes. It's almost like you're trying to get wheel bite. You're trying to get your wheel to hit the bottom of your board there, and that'll send it into a full flip. Another problem is you underturning it, and that's just kind of like you gave it pressure, but you didn't actually throw it forward. But you can actually pivot out of it if you underturn it. If you overturn it, then you're doomed. So you just got to keep that balance, practice it. That's about it, though.
Tony, man. I was thinking, man. I went for a long walk and I realized I don't want to be a hater, man. Pressure flips are cool. The truth of the matter is I can't do them.
Okay, well that's fair. And after we watch this, maybe you can go out and learn them.
Well, yeah.
But we're keeping it old school, so we gotta.
No, I'm all about that. I'm all about
the gamut.
I'm all about people having their own tricks and doing their own thing. I mean, that's where it's at. And that led me to thinking while I was walking around that maybe I can do something that I specialize in, and that's kind of something that I feel strongly about. That's street plants. And we can do that.
I don't know about street plants.
What do you mean you don't know about it? Dude, what happened? We were just having a love fest. I told you I was stoked on the pressure flips.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna leave you with the street plants then, because you're the master, no doubt. Like you actually got sponsored doing street plants. I know that for a fact. So all right. I'm gonna let you have that one.
All right, fair enough.
Okay,
fair enough. So street plants. The fundamentals of a street plant are pretty simple. Basically, you need a little bit of upper body strength, but really it's more so about balance. You bend down, pick your board up with your leading hand, or really whichever hand's more comfortable. You can grab with your back hand and plant with your front hand, or either way, it doesn't matter. You grab the board, you pick it up in your hands, and then you kind of go into a cartwheel type of maneuver, where you stall out at the peak of the cartwheel, so you're inverted, upside down, planted on one hand. and you just kind of bring it back down and stand back up. It's fairly simple, but it takes some practice. All right, that was the street plant. Like I said, it takes a little upper body strength, some balance, and definitely a lot of practice. It can be a dangerous trick actually to try, so be careful. You gotta watch out for your board dropping on your head or hitting you on the hand. You gotta really keep a good hold on it. And also you gotta really work on, when you get up onto your one arm, putting the board on your feet all in one motion. It's a real fluid kind of a thing. And you know, as you saw, we got Tony to try a few. He wasn't too fluid, but I think it worked out all right. So speaking of the man.
Well, you know, I'm more comfortable riding up a tranny and doing the hand plant and then coming back down.
Yeah, he needs the vertical to help him get inverted. You know?
Yeah, doing the whole thing.
Doesn't have enough upper body, but we're working on that. We're working on that.
That's fine, you know. Yeah, I used to try to do ho-hos when they were big, when Mike actually made them what they are, and I'd put my board on my feet and I'd be like 10 feet tall and just this huge stick figure, and my board would always drop down and land on my hands half the time, so I gave them up.
Yeah, it'd be dangerous.
But you know, it's fun to watch Mike do them, and it's fun to try street plants anyway. It used to be like in the 80s, people would just have a street plant session. Like, okay, here's a flat parking lot. Go, you guys, start balancing on your hands. And people kind of evolved out of that, but when you see guys like him do it, it's fun. Anyway, that's about it, you know. If you want to learn them, like you said, make sure you got upper body strength, because I used to be a 90-pound weakling until I found street plants. All right, well, since Mike is here, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about drops, bomb drops and acid drops, because when he shows up to a demo, people just expect him to pick the highest ledge and jump down off of it onto the ramp. Am I right?
Yeah, actually it's the first trick I ever did on a skateboard was a bomb drop. I didn't even have my own skateboard yet. I borrowed my friend's skateboard and climbed on top of his grandfather's car in his driveway, and that's the first thing I ever did on a skateboard was jump off his car. So I even took the bomb drop to the extremes of, because before I could even ollie up a curb, I would sort of bomb drop up a curb. I'd run with my board and jump up the curb. It was just my answer to getting in the air on a skateboard before I could ollie or even bend down and figure out how to do a boneless or something like that.
That works.
Yeah.
We're not going to show you how to jump off of cars, but what we do want to show you is how to drop, because if you drop off something, if you ride and drop off of something, that's an acid drop, and you don't do an ollie. And so you can actually go off of higher stuff than you would ollie off of, because you're not ollieing another foot into the air to drop down. You know, it works in a situation where suddenly you're at a ledge and you've got to get down it really quick and you go down. Or you can go straight off a ramp into the transition and sort of drop down the first part of it. You could also do a bomb drop like Mike and stand on something and jump into a ramp. That takes a little more skill just because it takes a commitment as you're jumping. But you know, it's good to learn. It's good to build up your confidence for going off of higher things. So, you know, this is one you can just work your way up. Go off a curb, go off a ledge, then start going off whatever you can.
Vert ramp.
Yeah, vert. No, not vert ramp.
No.
So we'll show you some, and we'll show you some common mistakes, although the most common mistake is just not going. As you start to drop, gradually straighten your legs down to keep your board on your feet. Absorb the landing by compressing both legs with your weight centered over the board. Avoid staying crouched, also known as the squat, and stand tall. This is the moment of truth here on a bomb drop. You're standing above something, you're looking down on the bank, everyone's watching you, no one's skating because they think you're going. So I learned from the master himself, Mike V, to get pumped up. Do some breathing. If you got a crowd, you know. And then you better go, because people are waiting.
Apparently Tony did learn well from the master, and so here I am, I'm up here ready to do my bomb drop, and what you gotta really remember is you have to spot your landing, and make sure you don't lean too far back. You wanna be really center of your board, even maybe just a little bit forward when you're coming in. So, like Tony said, you grab your board, you put it out there, you get all pumped up for it, you gotta breathe. There's a huge crowd going crazy, get all amped up. Spot your landing, get your feet placed on your board while you're still in the air, and roll away.
All right, well, with both tricks, acid drops and bomb drops, the main mistakes, first one is not committing. You stand up there and you don't go. Well, you didn't go, so you didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but you know, you just gotta, if you wanna go, go for it. But once you go, you gotta commit to it. You know, you can't start in and start to drop and then decide, I don't wanna do this, and you're in the air, and that's when it gets really dangerous. What else?
Oh, you gotta focus on your landing. You know, you gotta really spot where you wanna land, and make sure you keep your feet, when it comes to the bomb drop, make sure you put your feet on your board. And,
yeah, make sure they're set before you really set it down. And lean forward. You know, if you're coming into a bank, you gotta make sure that you're adjusted already for the bank. You can't make that adjustment on the way down. So you gotta be already committed to leaning forward. And
I know about that.
yeah, actually Mike has a few really classic mistakes on much bigger stuff that we were doing here. So that's about it though, you know, you just make sure that you're leaning forward, you're not leaning too far back. But then again, you also gotta watch for, on the acid drops, you gotta watch for wheel bite, all right? Because when you land, you tend to sort of squiggle out and your wheel can rub on your board and that'll stop you instantly. So, you know, it's just kind of, you drop it and you set it straight, you balance it out, and you're fine.
And when you leave your perch on the acid drop, you want to make sure you keep your nose up and then your board leveled out when you drop off.
That's it, you know, just try some, start it small, start it very small, just get used to it. You know, either way, if you're rolling or if you're dropping, just make sure that you are comfortable with getting your feet on your board, and you can go bigger and bigger and bigger. And someday you might be able to go as big as Mike, but I don't know. There aren't too many people that high.
We had some fun over there at the skate park with Tony, and I love skate parks. It's, you know, I'm all about supporting my local skate park and being there and making it happen there. But as you all know, there's other terrain, there's other places to skate, and most of the skating that I do was born in the streets. And so I want to take you out into the streets, my local neighborhood skate spot, and show you a few things here. All right, so you know what? I mean, Tony's not with me anymore, but I'm calling it out, man. Solo, 15-minute jam session here in the parking lot. Let's do this. Sessioning here in the parking lot. Had a lot of fun here. So we're gonna close it out just by saying, you know, remember just to have fun and be creative when you skate. You know, anything's possible. Just have a good time. And you know, I just want to say to Tony and those guys, and Tony and Bugsy filming the vert section, have fun. And Tony, I appreciate you allowing me to be in your video and participating. It's an honor. Thank you.